Hey guys, thank you guys for coming. Just by way of introductions, my name is Bautista. I'm a research analyst at GSR. GSR has been a market maker for over a decade. My personal role and capacity is very kind of mixed between our DeFi venture and just general kind of thought leadership on research. And today we're here to talk about memes, the evolution of them, and kind of how we see them from the market making and institutional side. And so with that, I'll pass it over to Chris.
Yeah, thanks, guys. A bit of an introduction about myself. So I was previously a trader at Genesis, previously a trader at GSR, Chicago Trading Company, and recently moved over to Cumberland Labs as a director of research and business development. Cumberland Labs is a venture studio and incubator that's backed by the partners at DRW and Cumberland. We incubated Hashnote, recently acquired by Circle, and recently wrote a piece on Memecoins back in December. So looking forward to kind of talking about the evolution of the market structure and user behavior.
Thanks. Hi, guys. My name is Katryna. I represent Wintermute, which is a leading global market maker on CeFi and DeFi. And I work on BD and partnership side. And yeah, very excited about the topic today.
Cool. So I think we'll start with kind of like what makes a meme and almost like the evolution of it. I think, if we had this panel almost like a year and a half ago, I think the general sentiment would be a lot different. That said, I think a lot of the contribution to that has changed just because, again, it's become just far more a competitive market than, I come across some funny meme on TikTok, let's see if there's a market around it, and then maybe punt, a Sol or an ETH into it. So I guess, Chris, like just starting with you, how do you kind of view memes from, even your own personal capacity, but just also, at Cumberland, and how you kind of seen that dynamic change over the past year?
Sure, yeah. Fact of the matter is, for me, over the past year, the market structure has definitely evolved for Memecoins. Q1, Q2, back in 2024, you had the launch of Pump.Fund and kind of like these fair launch protocols, allowing people to kind of just launch tokens. You knew the tokenomics is very fair. And then kind of heading into Q1 of 25, you started to see like a little bit more on the launch pads, defined tokenomics, and it started getting a little bit more extractive. So my personal perspective on this recently has definitely kind of shifted. Q4, I was very excited about memes. I thought like this was a great opportunity for marketing. I thought this was, banding communities together, and I thought it was like super interesting. You had the opportunity to actually, think about and trade attention. And one of the things I'd like to highlight here is over the past quarter or two, you've started to see like holding times definitely decrease. And I think that that's happened based on kind of like the market structure getting a little bit more extractive and less focused on the aspects of community and marketing. So to kind of highlight from a personal perspective, like I've traded memes. I remember one of the most interesting memes I was trading early on was Mu Ding. And one of the things was my wife had seen these TikToks and she was like, oh, these are so funny. These are so funny, Chris. And like she sends me these, and the first thing I do is kind of like, okay, I've previously seen like what happens on Pump.Fund. I kind of see what's going on in the space. Like, let's tune in and see, has this actually been launched on a coin on Solana? And like that is too, how I think of it, that was kind of like the quintessential Q3, Q4 of 24. It was like trading attention. Heading into Q1, it got a lot more extractive, obviously, with like the presidential token, which I thought, okay, this could be, relatively interesting. It could be like a community gathering thing or something like that. And then you had, the launch of Melania, and then you had the launch of the Argentina coin, and then all this stuff. And I started looking at the space from a little bit more of like an extractive perspective. So to kind of summarize it, from my perspective, it's gone from community, marketing, and a little bit more of kind of like tradable opportunities to a lot more PvP, a lot more extractive, and just kind of heading forward, like, I think in the next couple of months, it's going to continue like that. Like over the past week, there was one day where Pump Fund had no graduations, I believe. So that's just something to think about in terms of like longer term trends.
So with that said, I think one of the primary issues, and you can really blanket this as like crypto as a whole, is I think meme coins are like one of the main user funnels into the space. Like you kind of even mentioned, like your wife is learning about memes, and then your immediate reaction is like, well, all right, we have a market for that. And so I think looking forward, one of the questions I have is like, we as an industry, how do we kind of evolve from memes as this vehicle of speculation into kind of these attention markets? Because I think they quasi like to be, peddled as such. But again, I think what we've seen over the past like 2 weeks and really over, since I guess the start of the year is, as the tide washes in, you can really see the PvP nature. And like the whole point of memes is you are early and you are trying to like front run these narratives. However, as the window of opportunity, shortens and the amount of liquidity does as well, there no longer almost exists like a greater fool on the other end to sell to. And so I think, again, from almost a research standpoint, but even from a market dynamic aspect of crypto, I think it would be almost irresponsible to ignore the virality and then also kind of again, just overall capital appetite that memes do attract. Because if you look at, Radium volumes, you look at Solana volumes, I think Solana did almost like 19 billion in daily volume. Again, I think Radium had record fees there. Like, these are massive, massive amounts of money and massive amounts of capital that are being, traded back and forth. And so I think, how do you guys kind of view potentially, we've seen, to your point, the evolution of just like dog coins to cat coins to AI agent coins to presidential coins. Is there an insert, keyword coin at the end of this? Is it social tokens? How do you guys kind of view almost the counterweight of the VC-backed tokens? Is this still going to take place in the kind of the vehicle of a meme? Or, how do you guys kind of just view how meme coins could evolve?
Maybe I'll take that. Simply because, we as Wintermute probably representing kind of the institutional side, but also more personal side, because I work with a lot of teams who are looking to launch memes or have launched them in the past. I think if you Google today, Wintermute has 65% of the meme market in terms of trading and supporting those launches. So for us, the way we look at it, they're liquid, they're highly volatile, and as market makers, we know volatility is our friend. That's when we can, generate a lot of P&L. And we also do proper, KYC on the team, similar to how exchanges do that. So I think there are pros and cons to memes in general, right? You can call them content, coins, you can call them, joke and fun sort of memes. But I think, as you said, it's highly speculative and it has its place. It's almost like a Trojan horse, right? Like, again, you mentioned some of the stats on chain. We have seen that, their amount of wallets that have been attributed to, new token creations. It doesn't matter that 90% of them don't stick and become dead wallets. They still bring users on chain, whether it's through centralized venue or decentralized. We're definitely seeing that adoption. So the way we view it as Wintermute is that if it's a good team, admittedly it's a marketing machine, but it doesn't matter. Like, if you take some of the biggest names we worked with, some of them have surprisingly 95 people globally, literally all day long, creating content, creating the virality, creating kind of the FOMO, creating the speculation, creating like the constant content that drives that kind of people feeling their loyalty, right, to that particular army, whether it's an army, whether it's kind of a cult, however you call it, and then. Talking on a personal side, I think what we are now are, when you go through different stages of market evolution, where we are now is emperor is naked, right? Like, the emperor is there, but the emperor has no clothes, right? Like, and that's what really needs to be addressed. And quite often, if the market doesn't self-regulate, quite often what happens is, the regulators come into the space, right? Like, we have seen, I live in London, I live in the UK, pump.fun is not enabled there. You cannot access it. And I think what biggest concern will be, you see a lot of it here in the US. I think, again, the retail user in US is the most protected demographic in the world, right? And the last thing that the government wants is people spending their pension money or their, like wealth management allocation money into memes and losing it. Like, people lose 5 ETH a day very, very easily. And I think that's really is a concern that someone has to address. I don't know if it's going to be us, because again, I don't think it will be the platforms themselves. You look at the pump.fun, I think up to the year to date, they made close to 500 million in Solana, right? Like, so the fees are astronomical, right? So some of those protocols are extremely successful. They're generating great revenue, and I don't think they want that to stop, right? So the question is, what will be the next stage? And I think the good OG memes, they're definitely working on the utility factor, right? You take, for instance, Doge, it allowed payment. You take SHIB, it allowed staking. You take Bonk built a Bonk bot, right? So it's kind of starting from no utility meme to creating utility, that it has like real revenue driver or some sort of like tokenomics design to create incentives for the longevity of the token. That's kind of how I view the market. What's your view?
Yeah, I mean, mine's very similar, especially with like from the meme coin perspective. Obviously, if these are just things that go up, go down, go to zero. If you think about them from a like, hey, this is something that anyone can do. There's no utility, like there's no competitive advantage or edge for a lot of these things. The ones that are going to stick and stay are the ones that kind of have this focus on driving utility. Actually, one of my favorite examples actually is the Pudgy coin launch with Abstract. That is something that was super interesting from me, using Pudgy as kind of like an opportunity for distribution and driving kind of like this content and creator focused chain. That is something that was super cool to me. So a lot of the stuff that I'm focused on right now from a larger market cap perspective is how do they think about utility? How do they think about community? And how do they use this unique opportunity for distribution to actually have some sort of competitive edge in like this layer 1, layer 2 landscape? So that's actually a super cool case study. And yeah, I also own a Pudgy. So yeah. But yeah, that's my perspective. I think that a lot of these larger market cap coins are going to stick and stay. You actually do see a lot of these coins go to zero. I mean, look at the stuff that's launching on Pump.Fun. Even look at the stuff that launches from the launch pads. A lot of this stuff is going to zero. But like the OG memes that are focused on bringing utility and things like that, I think are definitely going to stick and stay over the next couple of years, especially if these kind of creators of these tokens have the opportunity to capitalize and leverage that unique distribution. So I like the case study of Abstract and Pudgy.
It is funny. I remember like almost a year ago, if a meme coin had utility, it was seen as like just very bearish, and like that's when you should get out. If like somebody's trying to launch an L2, like you get out as soon as possible. Again, in a personal capacity, of course. But I do think to your point, I very much agree, and I think like that actually should be underlined a lot. Is we as an industry want to see memes mature into utility, because ultimately, if that is where capital kind of like curates to and it's really attracted towards, like that gives these builders a great opportunity to then actually kind of use almost a meme coin launch as kind of like a true TGE and a true almost go-to-market strategy. And I think within the craziness of the past year, a lot of that has been lost. It is truly a great capital formation vehicle. And I think for some of these projects who are not, again, you've seen this like very precipitously across like AI agent projects, for example, where again, none of them were really VC backed, but they kind of had either like a GitHub or were able to kind of capture the zeitgeist of crypto Twitter, as small or as, as futile as that might be in the long run. But it allows a different way to, again, attract capital into a project that probably maybe wouldn't have got there initially just going like the general VC route. And so I think like as we potentially move into 2025, where you either have A, better regulation, but B, maybe a little more volatile market where memes aren't just going to go run to 100 mil just because they have a cute picture. I do think like ultimately these are the types of things that we do want to see from an institutional side as well. Like again, a lot of crypto really I think like its superpower in many ways is that virality. And again, I think like memes are a very central part of that. And I think like ignoring it or just kind of declaring the death of meme coins just because your bags have gone to zero, I think almost misses the point, because they are a very, very crucial element to what crypto, again, is really, really good at, which is capital formation and coordination, right? And meme coins, I think, very much underline that. And I think that's something that now that the tide has washed in and we've seen the emperor with no clothes, there are elements that we can kind of bake into new protocols, or if you are a builder and you're trying to figure out how to launch, like these are different ways that you can kind of like pick and choose from different projects that I think will lead to better outcomes.
I agree with you there. I think what I was going to pick up is I like the AI memes that we see coming out. The reason for me, as you say, is usually and again, kind of, going back to some of the teams that we work with, quite often, and that's probably important to differentiate, quite often the team means well, right? So the team comes to us and say, hey, we're looking to launch this meme. Can you guys snipe some supply? And we're like, no, we don't do that. Can you do some, on-chain, painting the chart? And we're like, no, we can't do that. They're like, well, do you know anyone who does? And I'm like, no, I don't, right? And I'm like, whenever I ask, why do they need that? They're like, well, that's the usual assumption, right? Like quite often those, teams, they already made the money. So they do have have longer term use. They want to kind of leave maybe some legacy, right? They want to bring the fun element. Like again, if you look even just the general Web2 advertising, apparently if there's a fun element in the advertising, it has a 30% more likeliness that people will buy that, right? Or buy into it. Like the emotional element is still very, very important. And I think what happens is that kind of the teams just don't have enough expertise and understanding, like probably our teams do, about the actual trading, right? They go and try to create like a fair launch, right? And then they're getting sniped. So like the main kind of people who they work against are the snipers. The snipers have very, very short-term views. They kind of, buy in the first, second blocks, they tip, they have very strong and quick execution tools, and they dump. The second part is also the insiders. So not the core team, but quite often the people who know about the launch, right? And quite often also kind of, deploy similar type of tooling. So I think what the industry really needs and what we have seen is a lot of the people who come to kind of build a successful meme, they don't have any trading expertise. They don't understand what it takes to, be successful, right? And I think that's probably where possibly us, as an industry can educate them. Or maybe I think as an answer to this kind of naked emperors, there will be a protocol or product built by someone who will allow the fair launch, but without the insiders, without the snipers, and kind of protect the teams to build on that long-term vision that they have. And I think there's nothing wrong with having the fun element, right? Because again, it brings in the real adoption, the real, kind of retail users, but in a safe manner, where they are not being rugged by the snipers and the insiders.
Maybe a question for the other panelists here. What are your thoughts on kind of like the evolution of trading tooling as we've started to see like this massive shift in the fair launches and the launch pads, like we just talked about snipers and kind of stuff there. I remember back in 2024, it was super easy. I just went to Radium, I just market bought, like no big deal. But now with like the competitive environment, the PvP nature of it, the lower holding times, people are getting in and out, people are just using this as a vehicle for speculation. It really seems like there's actually been a gap that has slowly started to be filled, whether it's like with venture-backed products or even just a lot more technical traders. What are your thoughts on kind of like the evolution of trading tooling, whether that is, wallet tracking or, MEV or things like that?
Yeah, I think until recently, I'm not sure if retail fully understood how professional almost meme trading has become. Yeah. And so I think there's two angles of that. One, I think even within the tooling itself, I think they're unaware of, like if you trade on Photon, you get clipped on a fee there, you get clipped on a Jupiter fee, and it's like, again, you spin in a casino and I think there's like a European casino on the slots that has like 2 green zeros versus like 1. And I think retail maybe doesn't understand like how much your like expected value changes very, very quickly based on the types of tools and the capacity in which you do so. And I think when you have that kind of going against you, and then also the professional aspect of like who you're trading against, who are some very, very legitimate teams, from the building side, but then also from the trading side as well. And so I think that trading, to answer your original question, is like I think it's net good that you are building kind of a better product suite around something that has kind of product market fit within crypto. Yep. That said, and again, I think that's where we could kind of do better as an industry too, is the general education is, we like to think, oh, you're trading memes, it's this cute, fun, like exercise. However, you don't realize how many, 20%, exactly. Like you're getting eaten for like, 2% slippage just because you think you can, flip it to a 10. Yeah, 50, exactly. Exactly. And so, but I think underneath that is a better education, because I think we like to have this veil that, again, crypto is a very, permissionless, open, like very, almost like, I don't want to say protective environment, but I think the dynamics are more predatory than people realize. And I do think we've opened up and like we've really seen that come to light, which again, I do think is net good. And unfortunately, whenever we do have these moments, it's usually met with like a 70% drawdown that makes people realize it. But I do expect kind of the tooling aspect to grow over time. I just think that we should kind of almost show that more on the front door of these websites versus you look at your wallet and that's when you realize it.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been a user of a lot of this is one of the thesis that we kind of put in the Memecoin piece, was like, we think that this is going to be an opportunity for more sophisticated trading tooling that kind of like you can start out as a beginner, and the features and functionality grow as you grow. In terms of like being able to simplify the user experience, simplify the UI, kind of what Toe said here. Like you should be able to see this on the platform. It should be transparent, and you should understand what you're getting into before you lose all your money in your wallet when the coin goes to zero. So fact of the matter is, from our perspective, like being able to see the evolution of a lot of these trading toolings, these smart defaults, stuff like that, it has definitely gotten better from the trading tooling perspective that I've seen as a personal user. And then also like talking to my wife's brother, like he's got the Photon app on his phone, like he's got Phantom Wallet, and he has never traded like anything. He's not an on-chain trader, but he is at least like getting through, getting through it. So.
All right, so we are running out of time here. However, my last question is so are meme coins cooked? Is the demise of meme coin over, or do you think there's still hope?
Still hope.
I think the cycle will continue, but it just will evolve into a better product, better tooling, Robinhood on chain, hopefully, where there is enough protection, less, but also additional, angles of speculations will stay because it's important for our firms.
I agree. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to hit you.